Well, good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Lunch Update, our program to help you stay curious, connected, and informed, all live in real time. This conversation, like all Lunch Update programs, are made possible by our generous supporters and sponsors, particularly our presenting sponsor, Perkins Coie, with a special thank you also to our Accelerate sponsors, Baker Tilly and Easy Office Products. Today's program will feature a conversation with the Reverend Dr. Alex G., who will share what's new and exciting about the updates with the Center for Black Excellence and Culture, which is set to open. But we also have an unexpected guest, I guess, when we first advertised, when we were thinking about what gateway projects look like. And so we will have two guests today, and I'm excited to introduce both of them to you. We only have 35 tickets remaining for our annual lunch icebreaker, which is on April 23rd. It's presented by WARF this year, so the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation. And this year's event, based on some remodeling, I think if you know the Kohl Center, you know that they've done some remodeling. The maximum capacity for this year is 816 seats. And so there were about 36 seats left. So I would encourage you, if you have not already, to make sure you buy your ticket or your table before they sell out, which will happen before you know it. It is the only business event of its kind that's done on the floor of the Kohl Center. And it's always a must-attend event. So I hope we can see you there. You can register by going to madisonbiz.com, or you can certainly contact our team about sponsorship for if any are left. We've had a lot of sponsorship come in, but certainly buying a table would be an option. Also last week, besides us promoting and opening Icebreaker, we announced our chamber board endorsements for the Madison Common Council. And so there were a multitude of candidates that came in over 2 nights for interviews. A chamber endorsement signals the candidate's strength on business and economic issues, and it's based on several factors, including their ability to align with our advocacy agenda. The truth be told, we are at a moment, and I think if you've read the op-ed that we did about a month ago, we're at a crossroads. And that crossroads means that as a community, we need people who bring innovation and creativity and decisive action to be our elected officials. That's what we should expect from our elected officials always, but particularly in this moment. The candidates that we have endorsed, we believe have the right experience, and we'll move quickly to address some of the collective challenges that we have, and will help our region achieve the shared prosperity that we all desire. If you are interested in a full list of our chamber endorsements, it can be found on our website at madisonbiz.com. And then also save the date. So every year we take a trip to DC to promote, advocate, and inform on the issues that are important to Greater Madison. And DC Meets Madison will return to our nation's capital this year on May 13th. With recent developments around important issues to our business and community, including research spending, tech hubs, skilled immigration, and more, our federal advocacy is more critical to this region than ever before. We would love for you to join us as we bring together federal policymakers, staff, honorary Wisconsinites to highlight Greater Madison's economic momentum and our region's importance to this nation. Registration details will be announced soon, so keep an eye out. But we do want to thank our founding partner, WPS, and all of our partners for making this event possible. As I said today, we're going to welcome 2 guests who are leading what we would call gateway community development. The first is Madison LakeWay, and the second, as I mentioned, is the Center for Black Excellence. They will each tell us a little bit more about their project, give us some updates, and even tell us a little bit about themselves. And so now for our first guest, Jayme Powers is a recent addition to the Madison population. She is the CEO of Madison LakeWay Partners. She comes to Madison by way of Seattle, New York, and Philadelphia, where she gained significant experience in startups and as a creative strategist. She has served in leadership roles for the 2018 Special Olympics, USA Games, Discovery Times Square, the Field Station, and Dinosaurs, an outdoor family attraction exhibit in New Jersey. So welcome, Jayme.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to get to Madison? And I know you spent time in Seattle, so you clearly have an affinity for cities that have an isthmus. But just tell us a little bit about how you ended up here.
So after producing the USA Games for Special Olympics in Seattle, I really was trying to find a next project where I felt like I'm going to make a difference in the community I'm living in. And what is that going to be? And so, this came up and I was super excited about it. First of all, everybody talks about how amazing Madison is. Your PR is incredible. People who haven't even been here are like, oh, I haven't been there, but I hear it's great. So I was very excited about the location. I'm originally from the Midwest. I grew up in Michigan, so I'm thrilled to be back here. Um, and I just felt like it was really the right project that sort of ties in all of, this sort of loopy career that I've had, opening a theme park and an art museum in Times Square, and I have sports in my background and arts in my background, and so this project in particular just sort of taps into a lot of what I've done already. So I was really excited about it.
Well, we're
Making a
glad to
difference in
hear.
my own community, right, is the key.
Well, we're glad that you so quickly adopted us as your community. So thank you. I think I love that you're saying in my own community. So thank you for becoming a Madisonian so quickly. Okay, well, I think there's a lot of curiosity out there. I know you guys have done some splash, but you're just getting geared up, and we'll have a quick conversation today, but I hope to have you on as you continue the process. But tell the audience just a little bit about Madison Lakeway. What does it entail? What's the scope? What's the timeline for it?
Hmm. So it's a really ambitious project. Um, it's going to take, 20 years probably and a couple $100 million to do. So we are right now, taking that, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step, right? So that's what we're doing. We've carved out what we call phase one, and that's what we're focused on so that we can really get this project off the ground. It's been a project that people have talked about for years and years. And so, the benefit is that we have all of this history and input and people who are really passionate about this project who are still helping us, drive it forward. But we really need to now make some progress on that. We're getting ready to launch a capital campaign so that we can kick it off and people will be able to start seeing what's been happening behind the scenes for so long now.
As you noted, I mean, a lot of discussion has been around the Lake Monona waterfront. John Nolan had his own plan. You there was the Frank Lloyd Wright vision that took 60 years to get done. The
Yeah.
Metcalfs had a plan a decade ago. The Nolan Centennial. As you think about the project, I guess two-part question: what makes you most excited, and then what keeps you up at night as you think about the beginning of this 1,000 steps?
Well, it's the same thing. The same thing does both, right? Because it's really exciting. But there are a lot of moving pieces and a lot of very invested stakeholders who are passionate about the project and have their own vision and tapping into all of those communities, making sure all of those voices are heard and represented is really important for the success of this project. We want to build a premier destination, a signature park where, bikers and boaters and walkers and, everybody feels welcome and just making sure all of those people are heard and represented and that it shows up actually on the lake shore. That keeps me up, but it's also it's the exciting part too.
Well, I mean, speaking of creating a sense of belonging, I think the viewers, if they look over your left shoulder, there's a turtle shirt or in a jersey, and if they look over your right shoulder, they'll see a pin that's got a turtle on it. Uh, uh, Talk to us about the significance of the logo and the use of the turtle, and maybe just walk us through a little bit of the what's embedded in the thoughtfulness of that logo.
So I have to give credit to Zebra Dog, who is a local branding and creative trailblazers here in Madison. They created the logo. It was put together in partnership with Madison LakeWay Partners and City Parks Department. And the painted turtle is symbolic of the Lakeway District, where land meets water. And represents the joy and the people and the animals and um, everything that sort of brings together the Lakeway. We have a really great, very short video on our homepage if you want to check it out that explains it. The grid on the painted turtle is the downtown grid of Madison. So we were able to incorporate the downtown right into the logo. So that's really fun too.
The I guess I have a statement. I want to see if you agree with it. Is the statement is Madison has not done enough to activate its lakefronts. You agree with that?
Well, I've only been here a couple of months. I'm not really the right person for historical context. But what I will say to that is that the group of people I'm working with, the board and the parks department and the county and the city, volunteers who are serving on our committees, they are incredibly passionate and really dedicated to making this happen. And some of them have been, as I said, working behind the scenes on this for decades. So they've overcome obstacles, they're resilient, and they're unwavering in their commitment to bringing this vision to life. So we're fortunate to having them lead the charge, and it'll be a premier destination and it will be spectacular. So I'm not so clear on the history, but I know where we're headed.
Well, I think the answer is yes. Been here for a long time, but so final question, what are the next steps? And then maybe just since this is largely a business community group, or at least audience, what can the business community do to get involved?
Oh, thank you for asking that. So we are about to launch the capital campaign, so hopefully you'll start to hear a lot more about the project and specifically phase one. Um, what the business community can do is if you are interested in being part of the Lakeway, we are ready to talk to you now. We're shaping what our partnerships look like. We're identifying naming rights opportunities. It's the perfect moment to jump on board. If you or your employees are interested in more boots on the ground, we need tons of volunteer support. Um, you can also help us get the word out. Uh, go to our website and sign up for our newsletter and follow us on social. And then finally, of course, I'd love to come back and share our progress later on when we have more to share.
Absolutely. Well, certainly we'll stay in touch. You do the same. And as you start to build out those plans, we'll be excited to have you back on and talk a little bit more about the progress. So thanks for joining us today, Jayme.
Thank you so much.
Right. And now for our next guest, who candidly does not need an introduction, but I'm going to do one anyway. The Reverend Dr. Alex G. There he is the lifelong Madison resident. He serves as the lead pastor for the Fountain of Life Church. He's the founder and CEO of the nonprofit Nehemiah Center for Urban Leadership and Leadership Development, and its renowned initiative, Justified Anger. He's an adjunct faculty member, a community activist, a life coach, an international lecturer, a relief worker, an author of 2 books, and a host of an award-winning podcast, Black Like Me, and is also my friend. So thanks for joining us today, my friend.
Hey, Zach, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on what's going on and to connect with you. Things are so busy in life, we don't get to see each other often enough. So it's great to see you, even if it's merely virtual.
I agree. First question, I drove by this morning from the Beltline. I looked to my left as I'm, starting to transition over to the John Nolan exit. And there is this magnificent structure coming out of the ground on the crest of the hill as a gateway, making a statement to this community. I saw in the media that earlier this month you had a steel topping ceremony at the center.
You did.
The completion of the framework. I can't believe how far they've gotten on building out the skin of the building from the framework. So first, congratulations.
Thank you.
Huge milestones. But second, last time we were on, we were talking about fundraising. So bring us up to date. How's the fundraising going? How's it gone? How close are you to the goal? What's still out there?
First of all, I want to say many of our supporters might not know that our first public presentation to the business community was really through you and through the chamber. I believe it was connecting with board members. Many of those folks came on board because of connecting through that opportunity to make this possible. And when I talked about a $30+ million project, I could see people's eyes open. And this is during COVID. We hadn't seen each other in person in years. People's jaws kind of dropped. Like, in this reality, in this community, are you kidding me? So, 3.5 years later, we've raised slightly over almost at 3 million, slightly over $30 million, which puts us only $1 million away from having a completely debt-free facility. This community, both individuals and philanthropic organizations and businesses, and I must add, and also city, state, county, and federal governmental leaders have come behind this in a way that I don't think anyone imagined, Zach. It's just to raise that kind of money for this kind of effort, housed in this community, to be this beacon, not only in South Madison, but for the state, still floors me. My friends around the country are like, you're crazy. How did you do that in a place like Madison, Wisconsin? So it makes me very, very proud to be a resident of this community.
Yeah, I think proud is the right word. I'm certainly proud of the community, but I'm also proud of you. I mean, I remember those early
Thank
days, those early conversations about what would the appetite be for $30 million, right? And even this idea of like, well, what did you need to get to so that you could open the building and take on debt and figure out how to pay for it later?
Right,
To be
right.
$1 million away from debt free is a testament to you. I mean, when I think back about the journey that I watched from the outside, you
Mhm.
imagined something different, better, magnificent for this community. You put pen to paper and designed it. You executed on it, and then you adapted when it didn't go exactly as you thought maybe it would. That you stayed nimble.
Yeah.
Um, it's I there are a few things I would say in the last 5, 10 years I'd be more proud of than what you're accomplished with
Oh,
building.
that means a tremendous amount, Zach. Thank you. Thank you.
You're also building out a team, right? And so our mutual friend, Jason Fields, former state legislature, former CEO of MadRep, has joined your team as the chief operating officer.
That's right.
As you transition from construction, I see your videos of the hard hat and the team out there. But you're clearly, by hiring somebody of his caliber, or starting to think about what operationalizing the structure
Definitely.
looks like. So talk about that. Talk about as you move away from the building phase and move into the operational phase. What does that look like? Is it similar to what you talked about last time? Has your vision changed? How's programming going to look? What's the use of the inside of the space? Just anything you can tell us about the operational side of it.
Sure. Sure. This excitement is a real pivotal one. It's real important. Think about how we had this concept that Rafik at JLA Architects designed, and then to watch Findorf come and take a look at these 3D drawings and make it a real facility is real comparable to what Jason's coming in to do. I've had programs in my head. We've had discussions with over 700 Black folks in the community, for closely with people like Anik DePatty, Dana Pelabon, the Leda G, and then my whole campaign team, to really think about what programming would look like. And so Jason's job is to come in and to help us to prioritize those things, because um, we want to figure out what space will our programming require. What's the prioritization process? What do we need in terms of staff? What do we need in terms of loan executives? What do we need in terms of volunteers? So it's an exciting process to watch that come to life. The programmatic part become constructed, similar to watching the walls coming up after the design work. I think the big challenge for Jason is that we have to now communicate this to businesses, like this is about to happen. Construction will be finished by the end of this year. Here are things that we need. Here's how we think you could benefit us. We can benefit you. Jason's paging through hours and hours of Zoom calls that we had with Black doctors, Black nurses, Black state workers, entrepreneurs, moms, Madison-born Black young adults, formerly incarcerated individuals, and to make sure that we're being true to what the community has asked for. Some things have changed a bit, but I think we've stayed true um, to the core desire to offer space the Black community can thrive and talk about our successes. I think some of the things that are clearer now that weren't when we first spoke was our emphasis on Black created solutions and working with Black researchers at the University of Wisconsin, connecting them with Black members of the community to create research around our success strategies and not just around every way in which we're dying more quickly than our white counterparts. We want to discover and we want to articulate and synthesize our secret sauce. You know, what leads to the swag and what leads to the ability to not succumb to some of these pressures, particularly in this state that's taken so many of our people out. But the desire to learn those things and capture them and share them has really gotten the develop has gotten the attention of like the dean of letters and science and researchers on campus, whether it's in Center for Healthy Minds with Richie Davidson or Alzheimer's research with Sterling Johnson and Sanjay Athana in all that memory care area. It's real unique because what, and then I'm working with another set of researchers who have said, your programming is using Black history and the telling of your stories of success to strengthen people and strengthen programs. We can help you set up metrics to measure the impact of that on Black wellness. So now we're talking about the whole wellness that is a byproduct of coming together. So Jason has a tall order in front of him, and it's not just a happy place to celebrate, but we have the possibility of measuring some great outcomes that could really change the game for Black communities across the country.
Yeah. So maybe a peek around behind the curtain of what the framework for Jason's pitch will look like. You talked about that the programming and the wellness and the space to convene and collect and to think and to project. Um,
Yes,
how does business participate? I mean, certainly it was clear on the fundraising side. We talked a lot about that on this show and personally how businesses can participate. And we've seen the proof of that success. But how do businesses actually engage now in the operational side? And maybe more important or more poignant, how do they benefit from the center? And not that the center is about return on investment, but my guess
sure.
there you have thought through how this benefits them as well.
Sure. You know, a couple of things come to mind, Zach. One is businesses are quite aware of how difficult it is to maintain Black talent in this community. I can't tell you how many strangers have stopped me, including 2 days ago while I was just touring the site. I was walking down the sidewalk across the street because traffic had stopped because trucks are moving. And this young guy jumped out of his phone. He's talking to his wife. He just moved here from Chicago. He has a small trucking business. He's just gotten into real estate. He said, is this you? Are you all doing this?" He said, "Because my wife and I were just talking. We need something like this here in Madison. We're from Chicago, and we need something like this to be here." So we're having these candid conversations with people who are saying, I have a place to go. I have something to do. Madison does have potential for me. I don't
Mm.
have to have one foot here and one foot in another community. This doesn't have to be my bedroom community. I think that that's one thing. I think the other thing is that in our innovation and our leadership space, where we are really treating artists like thought leaders and entrepreneurs. So we're trying to figure out how do we help people to not only perform on our stages, but how do we help Black entrepreneurs think about the creation of Black owned casting companies, lighting companies, costume companies, etc. And so we'll have this innovative space where these folks can work and network across sectors to create these solutions and business opportunities for our communities. um, businesses can partner with us. Jason's putting together a partnership so that Black staff can actually have a place where they can come and work and represent their businesses, represent the companies and the corporations they represent in that space and giving it a real grassroots feel. On a more and a more, I guess I'll always have my fundraising hat on. What tends to happen, and this has been my experience as a nonprofit fundraiser for about the last 35 years, is that there's lots of support for startups, but then that support wanes because the assumption is United Way and other philanthropic organizations are going to catch and grab those organizations. What was promised to us being the Black community during the height of the pandemic, was from several large corporations and foundations. We're going to do something different. That when this is built, we want to also come in and support programs. So your senior programming that you want to do, the intergenerational piece, the STEM and STEAM education for young kids, chamber music, introducing that to young kids, as well as language and advanced math, creating an education program for all elementary and middle school students in the county who can come on a field trip and learn about the contributions, the wonderful contributions of Black people to the state of Wisconsin. There's so many places where people can plug in. There's going to be makerspace and a library, and meeting rooms. And so, what businesses can do is to continue to support the programming of this space that will continue to allow um, the Black community to feel like it can thrive. But I think there'll also be an opportunity for volunteerism because my goal is to keep some of the costs down during the first year of operation by asking business partners for things like IT support or places where there's just special, it might be HR support, anything that we can do that we don't have to necessarily hire out, but benefit from strong partners. And folks like TDS, American Family Insurance, have done that with Nehemiah. If we get a number of companies doing that, Zach, and we can keep our overhead and costs low, that means we'll finish with fundraising for the capital campaign. We'll lower our costs. That means more dollars go into programs and program support for strengthening the family. And those are just a couple of ways that businesses can help us.
Appreciate that. We talked about the support and the intended and expected and hoped future support, financial and otherwise. And we've seen it from the community, from the governor, from federal lawmakers, business leaders, community leaders. As you think about this moment, lifelong resident of Madison, it's good in its ills. Why do you think this was the right moment for the center to come along? Like what catalyzed all of this action that concentrated itself into that that piece of land?
I'll try to answer this strategically. Um, I personally think that from a Black person's perspective, it's been the moment for this for a long, long time. I usually turn this question when I'm asked it to say what prompted the philanthropic and the business community, mainly white and male, to respond now. I think we've been all hearing a consistent message. I think we're all witnessing the loss of great talent. We all know someone who has either been employed or has employed someone, and we've all scratched our heads asking, why can't we keep folks? They have the goods. They can do Madison. They're kids who can do Madison. I think we're realizing it hit people. Wow, we've come at this perhaps from a deficit model perspective. Like, do they need backpacks? Do they need vouchers? Do they need help? To Are people really leaving because they don't find cultural reinforcement? Like things that they had in Philly and Manhattan and Chicago and Beloit and Milwaukee. I think the dots connected. And this came together, although the planning of this started pre-pandemic and before all of the falling out that happened during the pandemic. I think when the pandemic hit, it caused people to say, we've got to do something different. And I also think the broader community said, we're going to follow Black leadership. We're rather than questioning and talking to people like they don't know what the heck they're doing, we're going to lean in. And I felt that there was a lot of trust given because I was reporting on what over 700 voices said. Black people said 91% of our interviewees said we need a space to gather. We need a space that's ours. It didn't sound scientific, didn't always sound as sexy as we wanted programming to sound, but the Black community said this is what we need. And then they doubled down on what the programming would look like. But I think it was the timing. I think it was the consistency of the message. I also think it was the unity of seeing people cheer each other on, whether it was Michael, Colleen, or Jack, or Ruben, or Karen, or myself. We're literally texting each other saying, come on, man, leave some of the money on the table. Leave some out there for me, or congratulations on that Packers Foundation. I got more confirmation from the broader community and my peers in the last 5 years than I have in the last 35 years of doing work. And I think we all felt like we all win if we do this. So we were egging each other on to get to the finish line. And it felt like the perfect storm, Zach. And again, I have to stress the community, the political leaders, the business leaders, the philanthropic leaders, people who never gave to us, supported us and other orgs without pitting us against each other. It, the giving was brilliant, the design was brilliant, the unity was brilliant, and I just think it was that moment that allowed Madison and Greater Madison to coalesce in a way that it really hasn't hadn't. And I think we're all going to look back and say we all had a role in responding to the right things at the right time. And again, it just makes me very, very proud to be not only a resident of this community, but a product of it.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I love about you is that never in that entire response did you say me, I, my. And so you said you know, the pronouns you use were we and us, and it
Mm.
just says so much about who you are. And I think you said you turn this question around, and so without turning it around on me, I'll answer it though. So it's my show, but I'll stop you from asking me questions.
Yes,
I mean, it's our show, not my show. The
that's right.
but I think it's a lot of this is also the humble leadership, you know, of who you are. I think some of this is just ordained in a moment of as you transition from success to significance. Like you've had this amazing run of success. I read all of the things that you are and have done. But what is the now what, right? And so you think about justified anger, and you think about Black Like Me, and you think about all of the statements that were sometimes the first time people could even hear it, right? It wasn't that it wasn't being said, but it was like the first time that, you know, that others could actually hear it, or were able or ready, whatever the reason was to hear it.
Right,
But that
right.
you, as you think about what is legacy for the community, what is legacy for the next generation, I, you know, I know you won't say it, but I'll say it, that I think, but for you, none of this happens. So
Wow.
I appreciate your humble leadership and giving the credit and pushing it out, but I don't see how this happens, but for you.
Wow.
Um,
That means a lot to me. Thank you. Thank you, Zach.
so what, we've talked before about sort of who you are and how you got here and what shaped you. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, about a
Okay.
year ago, your mom, Verlene, passed. You talked about her a lot personally and openly to the public about what she meant and how she uh, defined who you became and what Madison is to
Yeah.
you and to your sister and to your family. I think it's fair to say she played a significant role in your desire to build the center. And
Oh,
I don't think
definitely.
it'd be an understatement to say she's the foundation of the center. And
It's the first time that's been stated, but that is beautifully stated. I would have to concur.
I think I heard there's a space dedicated to her in the.
There is,
uh,
there is. First of all, thank you for bringing that up. I know it's tricky because people wonder, like, is that too emotional to talk about? And it's been a year or so, but I really appreciate your bringing that up because it helps to give me permission to continue to talk about how she trained us to give back to the community to make the situation better. Anyone could point fingers and criticize, but it takes someone to roll up a strong person to roll up their sleeves and get involved. After she passed away. I think it was Cap Times did a beautiful story on her. UW Madison mentioned her in their newsletter to the Masters in Social Work program that one of its alumna passed away. But I just put it out to the community. I said, um, my mom was an aging senior, blah blah blah. I explained the situation with Alzheimer's, and I'd like to double down on the senior space and the community in the midst of like raising money for the general building. We were able to raise something like $400,000 to name this space. So and because I was able to tell her story because I'm a storyteller, I thought, but there are peers. Mom had so many friends, so many colleagues who also had amazing stories. I mean, my mom picked cotton as a kid and then got a master's degree from Wisconsin and graduated with honors and then paid cash for my tuition. Like that happened in my, like, I'm not only the first kid to go to college in my family, I'm the first kid in my dad's line of work, in my dad's lineage, to not pick cotton for a living. And so to have a place where a part of the programming is we want to get people to tell their stories. Who are your mentors? Who modeled care for you? What gave you the strength to come north? And how did you shake off the scars of sharecropping? And what's your dream for the future for the Black community and for race relations? But to have connections with industries or departments on campus to capture some of that just means the world to me. And the fact that I can go to work every day and see her beautiful face on some wall or some picture gives me so much joy. She would be so excited about what's going on. She would just laugh with excitement over this. Like, I was just waiting for you to do it. I knew you had it in you. She would be excited, but then act like it wasn't surprising to her.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Sure.
You know, we've talked about a lot of the good, the positives, and I wanted to lead with the accolades and the success. Um, but I'm curious about the challenges. I mean, as much as you um, sort of effortlessly talk about getting from point A to point B or from point A
Sure.
to point Z, um, talk a little bit about the challenges. What were the things that you faced that you didn't expect, and the things that were maybe bigger than the initial plan for how you would get to success? I'm curious, um, where did things go differently than you had thought, or didn't go as well as you had hoped?
Oh, wow. Zach, you might remember this, but way back when we acquired that field, it was a
Mhm.
car wash. Um, it was going to be a basketball court. I'm drawing a blank on the woman's name. She was the first female assistant coach in the NBA. And I'm just mad because I can't remember it. But she was going to give us, I think, $50,000 to put a basketball court, a dream court up. It wasn't tied to a program. We didn't have any fencing around. That just wasn't the best idea on that space. And then it morphed to a soccer field. And my friend Mary Lang Salinger helped me to think about it, put the plan together to try to raise money. That didn't go anywhere. Like we couldn't raise $2 million to make that work. Um, we thought that this was going to be a part of Reach Dane. Kaleem and I were working. It was going to be the home of one city. Things just kept morphing. He had to get his own space sooner than that. And then while we were still trying to decide what the partnership would be like with one city, the pandemic hit. And then all of the fallout with George Floyd and others with his murder and all, trying to stay focused and then asking what's happening in the world. I think it caused a lot of turmoil inside. Because I thought there's no way, and you know what, this is going to happen in this kind of environment. There's just too much that's going on. And my team, particularly people like Rick Phelps, former county executive Rick Phelps, really pushed me and said, no, my experience and my gut tells me this is the time to have your vision shared. Don't dumb down. He didn't say dumb down. Don't back down. Double down on this. He called me up and said, I think it's time to put the team back together. So like Blues Brothers, it's time to put the band back together. Um, and it wasn't with any other organization. It wasn't with one city. One city had already made a decision to work in Monona, the old WPS space. And so it meant we have to stand on our own. Like this can't just be a place that houses other tremendous programs like Reach Dane or One City. Like who are we? What are we? And I think the other piece that's tricky, and this is just part of my background as a person who studied history and loves history, to try to stress the importance of cultural identity and culture to a broad group who no longer really identified for those who are European American or of European descent because of how things worked in the country and people and the creation of the construct of being white. A lot of people abdicated the need to be Irish or Czech or German. Um, and so when you ask a lot of people about their heritage, they're like, well, my grandmother was, or my name is. So to explain to people the importance to hold on to this in a moment where the country was very divided and it felt to folks that we were trying to pull away even further, to say no, 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 no. 100 years ago, during the Spanish flu, um, when people were coming north during the northern migration and created the Cotton Club and the Apollo, it was culture, it was unity, it was togetherness, it was music, it was song, it was dance, it was playwrights, it was authors. Let's practice history. I think because I could articulate it in terms of history, and that was actually related, my sister's remembrance of what happened 100 years prior. But that process of helping people to understand the role that culture would work and the impact of culture on wellness and Black belonging and Black people staying here, I think to people, and understandably so, it felt like we were saying wah 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 wah. Like we don't. We've got art places downtown. You've got the hub across the street. We don't get it. And so once we ironed that out, I think it made fundraising easier. But I think the real difficulty was trying to explain culture to a community that didn't really see culture or color. And that was the hard, hard push. We were asked ad nauseum, aren't we competing against the Urban League? Aren't we doing the same thing as the Urban League? Why don't we just do one thing together and have all Black people come to one space and all be happy? That was the real tough part of moving the vision ahead. And I kept saying to my team, we are not, it's not my job to define what Ruben's doing. Ruben and I are close friends. We're fraternity brothers. We spend time together with our wives. We know each other well. So we're but I'm not gonna speak for him, he's not gonna speak for me. Let's tell the community who we are, what we're doing, and why. And we kept doing that. And I think it began to make sense. I think people realized that, my VP or whatever did say there was nowhere to go, or this graduate student said there's nowhere to go. They started putting pieces together, and I think it made sense. But for me, that was tougher than asking for the money, was explaining to people that Black people could do it, Black people would support it, Black people would come to it, and that Black people need it, and that the broader community would benefit from happier Black people. Explaining that to folks was very, very difficult. Asking for the money and raising $30 million dollars in a lot of ways took a long time, but it was not as gut wrenching as feeling like we had to describe and justify our history, our knowledge, and just our sheer wisdom and experience in this field.
I think my guess is that most people who are watching today know the story, but in case they don't, in late 2013, you wrote an essay called Justified Anger. It sparked a local movement. I mean, and I say movement, that was a bunch of different ways, right? It accelerated in ways, it created resistance in others, it created introspection and accusations. It got people active in all different ways. I remember I even said to you at the time, why did you choose the word anger? Right. And you
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
what I'm feeling, right? So I'm gonna
Right, right.
the but obviously the center, the hub, one city, um, the uh, some youth workforce facilities from the
Right.
Boys and Girls Club. There's been a lot of investment, but I wonder if you, as we get towards the end here, if you take a moment and you think about that, more than a decade since you wrote that,
Right.
how has Madison changed positively and negatively over that decade plus?
I think that between the Race to Equity report and Justified Anger, it sort of burst a bubble for a lot of folks so that people listened. They showed up for the town hall meeting, 600 people, the rollout, 700 to 900 people. People leaned in and said, I want to help. I want to be part of the solution. I think it opened the door for a lot of leadership to emerge. I think people realized we'll be taken seriously. And so we saw leaders emerge who hadn't really emerged before that moment. We didn't do it. We didn't, I think we just helped to pop that bubble so that people could be things could begin to ooze out. I think positively giving space for those leaders and these organizations and the influence has been amazing. Between all of these organizations, Zach, we raised over $100 million. I don't know what other city could boast of its Black community coming together, raising that kind of money inside the community for the good of the community. I think if there's bad, I feel that some of what's happening at a national level is going to rear its head in Madison. I think when times are very difficult, we become more fearful and we run from each other before we lean into each other. I think ultimately good will come out of all of this. And then I also think that some of the negative is either people thinking that we've arrived, so we don't need to do anything, or we'll watch while they do, as if this doesn't impact us. I live in Fitchburg. I live nowhere near a lake. I live near a pond across the street, but I'm concerned about the lakes because it makes the area better. I'm concerned about that work.
Yeah.
And so I want people to feel that way about race relations, whether they think it comes a part of their world or not. I want them to understand that it's important to the economy, to the environment, and to lean in. And I think sometimes thinking that they've got it, they're running for it, we'll watch it and evaluate it, is what's gone wrong. We need everyone to lean in. We need all hands on deck, particularly now.
All right. So final question. Last time you were on this program, you said when people don't feel like they're home, they don't invest. And that you hope the center would be part of the change to shift that perception of Madison in a positive way for the Black community. Do you feel that switch? I mean, you told the story of the young entrepreneur and his wife from Chicago, but do you feel like that is starting to your dream for this could be the moment to shift that perception is taking hold?
It does. It really does, Zach. I and it's not the Smithsonian Black History Museum. It's not like a 1 million square feet. It's 37,000 square feet. It used to be 60, but we had to pare it down because of economic realities. But I love this facility. But yes, because one, the Black community is speaking into it. They're saying, hey, what about? And what if we could? And when people say, hey, are you going to have? I said, it depends. I said, it depends on what, on whether or not you're going to recommend it. This discussion is not for me to tell you what's going to be in here. What do you need to see? And actually, that's lengthened the process of some program design because the more people speak into it, the more they'll use it. We were in New York a couple weeks ago because we were catching a flight from there to South Africa with some folks from my church. We went to a comedy cellar. I love comedy. So we went there. This brilliant Black comic was up. He's biracial, he's talking about being Black and white and how that plays out in the world. And at the end, one of the folks with me brought him over to me and said, hey, this is our pastor, but he's building the Center for Black Excellence in Culture. We want you to come and perform in it and blah, 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 blah. It's like, I would love to come to Madison. Hey, take my phone number down. This dude's got like 80,000 followers on Instagram.
Mm.
I realized I can actually walk up to people and say, hey, what are you doing next summer? So yes, the fact that we can do things and bring things in our community, whether it's musicians or magicians or comics and local folks and around the state, the fact that we can do things to put Madison on the map and celebrate our own and allow the broader community to celebrate that with us. Oh yeah, I feel that even greater now than the last time we spoke, friend. I feel it even stronger now.
Great. I love hearing that. I want to thank you for joining us today. I
Pleasure.
certainly want to thank you for in those moments of tension or an easier route, or to say, not my problem, not my, not my job. I want to say thanks for continuing to push forward on behalf of the entire community, but specifically for the parts of the community that have historically just been looked over, to make sure that the rest of us, the community as a whole, understands both our role and our responsibility for a better future collectively. And so thanks for being that inspiration to make that happen.
It is my pleasure. And thank you for creating platforms like this and others to share this vision. You have been supportive right from its inception, and that means a lot to me. And I want you to know that I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank all of you for joining us. And thanks to our presenting sponsor, Perkins Coie, for supporting and making today's program happen. We'll see you next time right here on Lunch Update.